Hello ladies and gentlemen, Tevaron here and welcome back to the Aether Revolt set review. This time we will be going over the black cards of Aether Revolt. Just as a reminder, these are my opinions and raw card evaluations, having never actually played with the cards. If you would like to check out the previous reviews, just click the link in the description or the small pop-up in the upper right hand corner of the video and it will take you to a handy dandy playlist. Now, on to the cards. Aether Poisoner. 1 and a black for a 1/1 human artificer with Death Touch. When Aether Poisoner enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. When Aether Poisoner attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Okay, I really don't think that black has enough support to be an energy-centric deck. However, if it did, then this card would definitely be a part of it. Death Touch allows it to swing mostly unmolested and to kill anything it blocks without first strike or indestructible. The servo creation is just kind of icing on the cake. Alley Strangler. 2 and a black for a 2/3 Aetherborn Rogue with Menace. Sorry, a vanilla 2/3 for 3, even if it's not quite vanilla and has Menace, just isn't good enough to see play, in my opinion. Battle at the Bridge. For a black and X, we get a sorcery with Improvise. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, you gain X life. Well, Dark Salvation wasn't as good as most people thought it might be. And Battle at the Bridge is a bit better since it doesn't require double X. And the life gain is not negligible. The sorcery speed is holding it back though. I do think it's a fine removal spell that will see some fringe play, though I think it's going to be lower down your removal list after you put in your instant speed removal. If a good artifact heavy control deck is viable though, then I think Battle at the Bridge is in a much better position owing to Improvise. Daring Demolition. 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature or vehicle. I don't think Daring Demolition makes the grade. Black can already deal with vehicles after they're crewed at instant speed. It doesn't particularly want a more expensive sorcery speed version of murder. Thanks very much. Defiant Salvager. For 2 and a black, we get a 2/2 Aetherborn Artificer. Sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Defiant Salvager. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. I personally think Nantuko Husk is the superior 3-mana sacrifice outlet. The only thing this guy has going for it is the ability to sacrifice non-creature artifacts. I mean, sure, Husk doesn't get to keep its pluses from turn to turn, but it gets twice as big and uses its ability at instant speed. And, of course, sacrificing stuff does trigger Revolt. I just think there are better ways to sacrifice things. This may see a small amount of play, but I think it will be fringe at best. Fatal Push. 1 black, instant. Destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. Revolt. Destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less. Instead, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So, do you think this card is pretty good? It's better than that. It's the removal spell that Control has been longing for, and that still may not be enough, but at least it gives Control archetypes a fighting chance. Much like Spell Queller, it punishes creatures that cost 4 or less. The combination of the two together may force players to raise their curves just to play around these cards. Fatal Push is going to be a staple that goes in just about any deck that's running black cards. Fin Hauler. 6 and a black for a 5/5 insect with Improvise. Fin Hauler can't be blocked by artifact creatures. Even with Improvise, I think this is too much mana for a creature that might as well have no other relevant text on it. Can't be blocked by artifacts isn't likely to be extremely relevant anytime soon. Fourth Bridge Prowler. 1 black for a 1/1 human rogue. When 4th Bridge Prowler enters the battlefield, you may have target creature get -1/-1 until end of turn. This is a decent sideboard card versus aggressive decks with lots of small creatures. However, Duels doesn't have sideboards, hence, 4th Bridge Prowler isn't very good. Gifted Aetherborn, 2 black for a 2/3 Aetherborn vampire with Death Touch and Lifelink. So, Vampire Nighthawk got its wings clipped, eh? Still seems pretty good to me. Probably better in control or mid-range, still a perfectly fine card in an aggro deck as well. Basically holds the ground versus anything. Well, almost anything. Glint Sleeve Siphoner, 1 and a black for a 2/1 human rogue with Menace. Whenever Glint Sleeve Siphoner enters the battlefield or attacks, you get an energy counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So there have been several attempts at making fixed Dark Confidant variants over the years, most recently Asylum Visitor. And though I hesitate to say it, I think the Siphoner gets as close as we've ever gotten. Especially if you can turn out even a moderate amount of energy production. Menace is a fine and relevant ability should you need to attack with it, but it would certainly be better if you didn't need to, due to energy from other sources. It seems good, maybe even great. It could also be something that could push an aggro deck like Black-Red over the top. Or it could turn out to be just another do-nothing Dark Confidant cosplay. I suppose we shall see very shortly which is closer to the truth. Gonti's Machinations. 1 black enchantment. Whenever you lose life for the first time, you get 1 energy. Pay 2 energy, sacrifice Gonti's Machinations. Each opponent loses 3 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Okay, this seems like a lot of trouble to go to drain 3 life from your opponent. And the energy gain is, well, not a lot of energy gain. Sure, it can combo with Glint Sleeve Siphoner, technically allowing you to draw an extra card every turn. I'm still not sure it's good enough to be played since you won't always have a Siphoner out with it. And in those instances, it's kind of a dead card. Herald of Anguish, 5 and 2 black for a 5/5 demon with Improvise and Flying. And at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card, and you may pay 1 and a black and sacrifice an artifact, and target creature gets -2 until end of turn. Okay, this guy does a lot of things that are really powerful. Is it possible to build your deck in a way that allows you to reduce his cost without just making the deck bad? I don't know. Maybe you don't need to. 7 mana is a lot, but he also does a lot. I'm interested to see what I can do with this demon, and how effective he would be as the very top end of a control deck. But as we've said before, the 7-drop slot is very crowded, unless perhaps you're not playing white. Night Market Aeronaut, 3 and a black for a 2/2 Aetherborn warrior with flying. Revolt, Night Market Aeronaut, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer is horrible. Sure, it has Revolt and can potentially be a 3/3, but the risk of not being able to make that happen makes this Aetherborn warrior a no-go for me. Renegade's Getaway, 2 and a black for an instant. Target permanent gains indestructible until end of turn. Create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. This is a not very good combat trick that gives you a servo. It could also stop Planar Outburst from killing one of your creatures, but then you lose the servo. I just don't think it does enough to warrant a slot in a deck. Resourceful Return, 1 and a black sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If you control an artifact, draw a card. So this card is pretty decent. I can easily see sticking some number in any deck that runs artifacts, like Vehicles or Scrap Heap Scrounger, nudge nudge. Drawing 2 cards? Well, I mean, technically drawing 2 cards, one's from the graveyard, one's from your deck, for 2 mana seems pretty good to me. Sly Requisitioner, 4 and a black for a 2/2 human artificer with Improvise. Whenever a non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. This girl is interesting. She rewards you for playing artifacts both in cost reduction and when they die. I'm not sure there's a way to abuse that, but there just might be, probably involving Scrap Heap Scrounger in some manner. Vengeful Rebel, 2 and a black 3/2 Aetherborn warrior with Revolt. When Vengeful Rebel enters the battlefield, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn. A potentially easier to trigger version of Wasteland Strangler. If you can find a way to reliably trigger Revolt, then this dude is pretty good, and black honestly has quite a few ways to trigger Revolt. Yahini's Expertise, 2 and 2 black sorcery. All creatures get -3/-3 until end of turn. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Woot woot! I honestly did not expect us to get this card in Duels as we already have Languish, but I'm very glad that we did. Sometimes this card will be better than Languish and sometimes worse depending upon the size of your own creatures and the spell that you cast off of it for free. But in any event, it's going to be really, really, really good. Yahini, Undying Partisan, 2 and a black for a 2/2 legendary Aetherborn vampire with haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Yahini, Undying Partisan. Sacrifice another creature, Yahini gains indestructible until end of turn. Well, here is another sacrifice outlet to trigger Revolt at will. Again, I think that Nantuko Husk may just be strictly better, though Husk is an uncommon, so maybe Yahini fits in the 4th and 5th copy slots. I can't say for sure if that'll be the case. Need to play some games to see how it all shakes out. And that is the end of the black cards coming to Magic Duels in Aether Revolt. Let's rank our top 3, shall we? Coming in at number 3, Glint Sleeve Siphoner. And how I hope I'm not wrong about that one. Number 2, Yahini's Expertise. And number 1, Fatal Push. What are your favorites in black? What would you have liked to have gotten that we didn't? Honestly, pretty much everything I wanted to make it into Duels in black made it in. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Next time we will be looking at the red cards of Aether Revolt. I hope you will join me for that. And until then, friends, be excellent to each other.